Hey everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beaver Mosh, and today I'm talking to you about total spiritual death from the Denver, Colorado based Astral Tomb, and this is coming off of Blood Harvest. And this band plays a spacey, cosmic themed, and quite progressive death metal. It's adventurous and can be quite zany at times in the best way. Astral Tomb utilizes a lot of dissonance, and it has that cavernous quality looming over the entire record. And this is an album that can be quite complex at times, exploring different timbres and rhythms and incorporating a plethora of sounds that are sometimes foreign to death metal, but they keep it punishing for sure. Milan is this very open, transcendental-like introduction with these gentle, patiently played pick-throughs and these gentle tom rolls. It results in these ritualistic rhythms and melodies, especially with the dense echo attached to them. But slowly the discordance and the gain get thrown into the mix, which results in this track leading us holding our hand into Cathedral. And here we get these huge pounding riffs and clanging drum beats. The vocals hit these breathy, harsh, jagged growls. It's very feverish stuff. I really enjoy these jittery, off-kilter, kind of proggy licks that are still very brutal and not overly cerebral, and does this call and response thing with the bass that's really cool. And at the same time, there's this sweet sense of chromaticism and these strange modes baked into what the guitar is doing. And there's also these counterpointing harmonies worked in. There's a certain complexity to this record while still being very fun to listen to. On All Black Vet, these murky synths lend way into these palm muted chugs, and this is a great time to kind of dissect and talk about the guitar tone, because we get this nasty gurgling crunch but with a lo-fi darkness to it that makes it really stick out to me. Ellie Reynolds lends vocals on this album, this being the first of two appearances. The second I would talk about later on in this review. And here Reynolds' voice serves as kind of a complement to the growled vocals, being this interesting, soft and harsh contrast. These distorted percussive synths work in tandem with these exceptionally angular, stabbing riffs and alien tremolo licks. And at the same time, the screech vocals sound like they are gasping for air, as if they are being cut off from oxygen completely. There are moments on this record that are so bleak and ugly. It just completely owns that cavernous feel. Coward demonstrates that the band hasn't completely neglected the more bum-rushing, traditional savage death metal riffs, but there is still this very interesting part where these clean pastoral guitars trade off measures with these nasty honking harmonics, and it's very, very unsettling how that switches back and forth so suddenly all the time. The drums show off here with these hyper speed pummeling snare runs, while the guitar gives these squealing slides that are just so atonal and disgusting. And with this, the vocals are just giving off these hellish barks, these declarations into the darkness. And at the same time, I love these witchy, morose, slowly delivered melodic lines. The band is constantly shifting things, changing things up, switching up timbres. and approaches and speeds and rhythms, yet it all flows so well and never comes across as random. Soul Gaze is this cool, laser-like synth interlude that feels exceptionally retro in the darkest horror sense of that, but somehow transitions into almost a dream pop, hazy second half. It's a really sick instrumental overall that feels like it's serving a purpose in the album's narrative, and it isn't just tacked on as a track to be filler. A big chunk of the entire album is packaged in this 13-minute dissonant odyssey, Funeral of Self, kicked off with these hollow, spacious guitars, decimating death growls, and violent, snapping drum passages. And at the same time, there are these epic, adventurous, swelled melodies that communicate this exploration, but with a dark, foreboding quality attached to that. The drummer is interjecting a lot of theatrics into this track, often speeding up while the guitars stay at a mid-tempo, which results in this suspense, but then will often slow down dramatically. It's all quite creative and colorful, and I just like how the drummer here isn't relying solely on blast beats. And I just love this quiet, impressionistic midsection with this very emotive drumming style and this discordant guitar noodling. It reminds me of a Can record almost, while this develops slowly over several minutes as it begins to grow gradually louder and more distraught and dissonant. But eventually everything does all escape, and it leads into these stomping, serrated riffs played in these quite oblong strumming patterns. It's hammering and punishing, but also odd in a very welcome way. And tacked on are these sick, screeching harmonics that everything is working together for this very vile affair. Eyes Wide Shut is the last track, and it brings Ellie Reynolds, who I mentioned before, back on. And for the most part, this track is actually pretty beautiful. These clean, breezy strums and these absolutely gorgeous, somewhat romantic, shoegazy sung lines from Reynolds. But slowly underneath, the polish seems to fall off, and over time, everything underneath is becoming more jagged and chaotic. It's actually really jarring in an intentional way how Reynolds' vocal stylings will stay constant, while the floor underneath just completely collapses everywhere. But that's before this blood-curdling scream is let out from Reynolds. I feel if this outro was done wrong by a different death metal album, it could kill the record. This is actually quite a risk. But the way it blends with everything else in the album, how it kind of feels like it fits the form and just the overall trajectory and the tonality, I think it's actually kind of perfect. Total Spiritual Death is a trimmed listen at just over 37 minutes, but it feels like you took a huge adventure as it goes to so many places and takes quite a bit of turns. This is definitely not a conventional death metal album, but Astral Tomb, I feel, also doesn't lose focus and doesn't lose sight of those foundational death metal characteristics either. The experimentation on this album is controlled, and it's very exciting. And if you're someone who enjoys the more dissonant side of death metal that has been taking prominence as of late, or you like more progressive takes on the genre, then I have to recommend this album to you. And hey, guess what? Those are my thoughts. If you like what I do, if you like this review, tell me, hit the like button. It would mean the world to me if you consider subscribing, leave a comment. I love getting to engage with those. I have a Twitter. You can follow a link to that in the bio of this YouTube channel. And hey, keep it metal. My name is Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh, and I am signing off.